Jack and Emily were urban explorers looking for a new location to check out. A couple of fellow explorers recommended Waverly Hills Sanatorium. They got all the information they needed and made their way to the abandoned hospital. As soon as the sun set, Jack and Emily slipped through the chain-link fence surrounding Waverly Hills Sanatorium. The deserted, Gothic-looking building loomed ahead of them, a chilling reminder of the past. They had heard the rumors of ghostly sightings and wanted to experience it for themselves. Be careful what you wish for. The thrill of the unknown urged them forward, even as their hearts raced with fear. They entered the building through a creaky door that was nearly falling apart. They crept through the dark corridors, flashlights dancing around on the peeling walls. The eerie silence was punctuated only by their own breathing and the sounds of their footsteps. They made their way down the long, dark hallway, spider webs occasionally tickling their faces. That could be a ghost. Suddenly, a shadowy figure appeared at the end of the hallway. Frozen in terror, they watched as the figure approached them. Its ghostly form flickering in the dim light. They turned around and tried to flee. However, more apparitions emerged, blocking their path. The ghosts seemed to be closing in from all sides, trapping them in the haunted sanatorium. They're about to get ghosted. Jack and Emily's screams echoed through the empty halls as they ran for their lives. After a frantic scramble, they found the door they had came in and burst through the door, nearly knocking it off its hinges. Sweating, out of breath, and shaking with fear, they made it back into the moonlit night. As they made their way back to the safety of their car, they couldn't shake the feeling that they had definitely encountered something paranormal. As Jack looked back at the spooky, ominous building from the safety of his car, he saw a wispy figure looking at him from one of the windows. They left as quickly as they could. They will never forget their terrifying experience at Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Just outside of Louisville, Kentucky, being from Kentucky, I know how to pronounce it correctly. It's Louisville, not Louisville or Louisville. Is a place steeped in history, tragedy, and unexplained phenomena. Once a beacon of hope for those suffering from tuberculosis, this massive building has become known as one of the most haunted places in the world, Waverly Hills Sanatorium. The lofty, bat-winged, Gothic-style building has a reputation that matches its very spooky appearance. That reputation is as one of the most haunted places in America, and many say it's one of the most haunted on Earth. Kind of looks like Arkham Asylum, doesn't it? Patients were brought to Waverly Hills with the hope that the fresh country air and innovative medical treatments could cure them of their disease. However, Not all patients were fortunate enough to leave Waverly Hills alive. In fact, most didn't. The overcrowded conditions, experimental treatments, and lack of understanding about the disease led to many deaths. Over the years, countless reports of paranormal activity have been recorded at Waverly Hills. Visitors have reported hearing strange noises, seeing apparitions, and feeling sudden chills in the air. Some have even claimed to have been touched or pushed by an unseen force. Will you stop pushing me? Today, Waverly Hills Sanatorium is a popular destination for paranormal investigators, thrill seekers, and history buffs alike. Guided tours of the building are available year-round, offering visitors a chance to explore the halls where many suffered and died. I'm going to take us on a quest into the dark history of Waverly Hills Sanatorium. From the grim medical procedures to the ghostly encounters that have made it famous. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, there's no denying the eerie atmosphere of this haunted location. Hell, just look at the fucking thing. So brace yourself and get ready to be creeped the fuck out as we journey through the haunted halls of Waverly Hills Sanatorium. I've been wanting to check this place out for a long time. From what I've been told, you're almost guaranteed to have a paranormal experience of some kind while you're there, if not several. Oh, I'll get there eventually. In the meantime, this is what I found out about it. The land where it's located was originally purchased by Thomas Hercules Hayes, a Confederate veteran and state senator in 1883, as his family home. Since the plot was located so far away from everything, including schools, Major Hayes decided to build a one-room schoolhouse on the property for his daughters. That was nice. He hired Lizzie Lee Harris as teacher for his children. Miss Harris was a big fan of Walter Scott's Waverly novels, so she asked Major Hayes if she could name the schoolhouse Waverly School. He agreed and loved the serene-sounding name so much he named the entire property Waverly Hill. Fast forward a decade or so. By the early 20th century, tuberculosis, also called consumption back in the day, was widespread across the United States. Louisville was hit exceptionally hard due to its growing industrialization and location within the Ohio Valley, both of which contributed to the lack of airflow through the city. This made a perfect breeding ground for the tuberculosis bacteria. In the beginning of 1911, the city of Louisville began to make preparations to build a new Louisville City Hospital, and the hospital commissioners decided that there would be no planning made in the new city hospital for the admission of tuberculosis patients. Well, that wasn't very fucking smart, was it? The board of Tuberculosis Hospital was given $25,000 to erect a hospital for the care of advanced cases of tuberculosis. The board of Tuberculosis Hospital purchased the land for Major Hayes and built a 2-story wooden sanatorium with 2 open-air pavilions housing 40 patients. Waverly Hill was considered to be in a perfect spot due to its distance from the city, its quiet location, and its high altitude, contributing to good air quality. The board really liked the peaceful name Waverly Hill and kept it. How ironic. As the White Plague raged on, available beds became hard to come by, as the small sanatorium was quickly overpopulated with 140 patients. Most were put in tents outside the building. Waverly Hill ultimately had to expand to accommodate the massive influx of patients. In March of 1924, construction of a Gothic-style 5-story brick structure began. The new building opened on October 17, 1926. The upgraded, sprawling facility was 180,000 square feet and would hold over 400 patients. Waverly Hills became its own city. It raised its own food, had a water treatment facility, a laundromat, post office, radio station, and its own zip code. This was necessary due to once doctors and nurses arrived at Waverly Hills to work, they were separated from society, not allowed to leave. Man, that gives a new meaning to taking your job home with you, huh? This was due to the contagious nature of the disease. Likewise, unaffected children of the patients had their own floor in the sanatorium, separated from the rest of the world. The treatment plan at the time was lots of sunshine, fresh air, and healthy food. Weak. The staff did all they could to keep the patients in good spirits. Pun not intended. This was thought to keep the patients alive longer and not succumb to the disease. On top of that, some of the unsuccessful experimental procedures used to treat the disease were pretty fucking barbaric by today's standards. Balloons were inserted into the patient's lungs to inflate them. Rib bones were removed to make room for the lungs to expand, to allow the lesions on the lungs to heal. Some patients had up to 8 rib bones removed. As time went on, more and more patients began to die as the disease tightened its grip on the community. It got to the point where one patient was dying every day from the pandemic. The number of shrouded bodies being carted away from the building began to have a dramatic effect on the morale of the victims, which was hugely problematic since this was the cornerstone of treatment. It deflated their optimism along with their lungs. A tunnel under the facility was constructed so that staff could move the bodies in secret to keep the patient's spirits up. The 500-foot-long tunnel led down a hill at a steep 45-degree angle to a set of train tracks, where the bodies would be loaded onto a train and carried away. Later on, Waverly Hills used a hearse to transport the bodies. The tunnel was initially called the Body Chute, but was later affectionately named the Death Tunnel. I like that one. Approximately 8,000 patients lost their fight with the horrible disease at Waverly Hills before a cure was finally found in 1943. Gradually, the number of patients at Waverly Hills decreased. In 1962, Waverly Hills closed as a tuberculosis hospital, and the remaining patients were transferred to a regular hospital. A year later, the facility was reopened as Woodhaven Geriatric Center a live-in nursing facility for elderly patients with dementia and mobility issues. Woodhaven was closed in 1982 when a grand jury found multiple instances of rampant patient abuse and neglect of the facility. The empty building was purchased by a number of buyers in the following years, but nothing ever came to fruition. It sat abandoned for several years until it was purchased in 2001 for $230,000 and set up as a nonprofit organization. This place is so fucking haunted, it'd be tough not to experience something paranormal. With all the sadness, pain, suffering, and abuse that went on there, it's no wonder it's so disturbed. There have been reports of a ghostly hearse appearing behind Waverly Hills Sanatorium, dropping off coffins as if it were still an active hospital. According to witnesses, this hearse is said to be driven by a ghostly figure known as the Death Driver. So, like Ghost Rider, only in a hearse. The legend of the hearse dates back to the time when Waverly Hills was still a functioning hospital for tuberculosis patients. During this time, patients who died were taken out of the hospital through the death tunnel to avoid upsetting other patients. The coffins were then loaded onto a hearse and driven away from the hospital. However, some believe that the spirits of the deceased patients who were not given proper burials still roam the grounds along with the hearse that carried them. Visitors to Waverly Hills have reported seeing the ghostly hearse appear out of nowhere and drop off the coffins only to vanish into thin air. Sounds like my last Uber experience. Many people believe that it is a haunting reminder of the tragic history of Waverly Hills Sanatorium, like a spiritual postcard. One of the most famous ghost stories associated with Waverly Hills Sanatorium is of a little girl ghost who is said to run up and down the third-floor solarium, playing with a ball. According to reports, the girl was a patient at the hospital who died of tuberculosis at a young age. Numerous visitors to Waverly Hills have reported seeing the little girl's apparition, often appearing as a misty figure dressed in white. Witnesses have also reported hearing the sound of a bouncing ball and a little girl giggling coming from the third-floor solarium, even though no one is there. Some believe that the little girl's spirit remains at Waverly Hills because she died without ever having the chance to grow up and experience life outside of the hospital. That sucks. Others speculate that her spirit may be trapped in a time loop, reliving her final moments over and over again. That's known as a residual haunting. Another ghostly legend associated with Waverly Hills Sanatorium is that of a little boy ghost known as Timmy. Timmy! The name Timmy is not confirmed as the actual name of the boy, but rather a nickname given to him by those who have had experiences with his ghostly presence. He is said to play with a leather ball. According to the story, Timmy was a patient at the hospital who died of tuberculosis when he was 6 or 7 years old. Visitors to Waverly Hills have reported seeing the ghost of Timmy in the fourth floor corridor, often accompanied by the sound of a bouncing leather ball. Witnesses have also reported feeling a cold breeze and a sudden drop in temperature in the area where Timmy is said to appear. Some believe that Timmy's spirit remains at Waverly Hills because he died in the hospital without ever having the chance to experience life outside of it. Others speculate that his spirit may be trapped there, playing with his ball, reliving his final happy moments in the hospital. One of the saddest stories at Waverly Hills would be the ghost of a woman with bleeding wrists. The woman's ghost roams the halls, mourning in agony, bleeding from her hands and feet. She cries for help, but when someone comes closer to help her, she runs away, screaming in horror. Fine, I won't help you then. According to the story, the woman was a patient at the hospital who suffered from depression and ultimately took her own life. Visitors to Waverly Hills have reported encountering the ghostly apparition of the woman, often hearing the cries for help and seeing her bloodied wrists. Witnesses have also reported feeling a heavy sense of sadness and despair in the area where the woman is said to appear. Some believe that the woman's spirit remains at Waverly Hills because she died in the hospital without ever finding the help she needed to overcome her depression. Others speculate that her spirit may be stuck in a cycle of reliving her final moments and seeking help for her suffering. A man in a white coat appears in the hospital's kitchen area. According to the legend, the man was a doctor who worked in the hospital during its years of operation. Visitors to Waverly Hills have reported seeing the ghostly apparition of the man in the white coat walking around in the kitchen, sometimes carrying a clipboard or other medical equipment. Why would he need a stethoscope in the kitchen? Witnesses have also reported feeling a sense of unease or discomfort in the area where the man is said to appear. Some believe that the man's spirit remains at Waverly Hills because he is deeply committed to his work at the hospital and may have continued to carry out his duties even after his death. Others speculate that his spirit may be caught in a circuit of reliving his work in the hospital kitchen. Why in the hell was a doctor hanging out in the kitchen? To doctor up a meal? In the same area, the smell of freshly baked bread has been reported by some visitors to the hospital. According to the reports, the scent of baking bread wafts through the air in the hospital, even though there is obviously no bread being baked on the premises. Somebody was getting baked. The smell of fresh bread would occasionally be used to lift the spirits of the patients and create a sense of comfort and normalcy in an otherwise bleak environment. Others speculate that the smell of bread may be connected to the ghostly presence of former patients or staff members who may be trying to communicate with the living by triggering familiar scents or memories. Continuing with the claims in the cafeteria at Waverly Hills Sanatorium is known to be an area of many reported paranormal activities. According to the accounts of visitors and paranormal investigators, the cafeteria has been the site of several hauntings, including strange noises, apparitions, and disembodied voices. One of the most commonly reported claims in the cafeteria is the sound of children's laughter and singing. Which is believed to be connected to the ghostly presence of young patients who once stayed at the hospital. Some visitors have even reported seeing apparitions of children in the cafeteria area, as well as the sound of footsteps and running in the hallway just outside of the cafeteria. Others have reported hearing the sounds of furniture moving or footsteps coming from the second floor storage area above the cafeteria. Some speculate that these sounds are connected to the ghostly presence of former hospital staff members who may be working or going about their duties. That's some dedication there. In addition to these claims, some visitors to the cafeteria have reported experiencing strange physical sensations or feeling as if they're being watched or followed by an unseen presence. A cafeteria creeper? One of the most well-known ghost stories associated with Waverly Hills Sanatorium involves the tragic fate of the nurse of room 502, who died after becoming pregnant out of wedlock in 1928. There are two versions of this story. According to the first version, the nurse was working at the hospital during a time when pregnancy outside of marriage was highly stigmatized. When she discovered that she was pregnant, she was overcome with shame and despair, knowing that she would likely lose her job and face social banishment. Unable to cope with the weight of her situation, she's said to have taken her own life by hanging herself from a pipe in room 502. In the other version of the story, the nurse becomes pregnant by a doctor at the hospital and seeks out an illegal abortion to terminate the pregnancy. However, the procedure goes wrong and she died as a result. Ever since her death, visitors to Waverly Hills have reported seeing the apparition of a nurse dressed in a white uniform who is believed to be the same woman who took her own life. Some have reported seeing her hanging from a noose in various parts of the hospital. She's just hanging around. While others have seen her wandering the halls in a state of distress or heard her crying and moaning. The ghostly presence of the nurse has become one of the most famous and well-documented paranormal phenomena associated with the hospital. Her tragic story is a reminder of the harsh societal pressures that once existed for women and the devastating impact that these pressures would have on their lives. My, how times have changed. This would not be the only tragedy to occur with a connection to room 502. In 1932, another nurse who worked in the same room jumped from the roof patio and plunged several stories to her death. No one seems to know why she would have done this, but many have speculated that she may have actually been pushed over the edge. There are no records to indicate this, but rumors continue to persist. The creeper is one of the most well-known paranormal phenomena associated with Waverly Hills Sanatorium. This ghostly apparition is said to be a shadowy figure that crawls along the floors and walls of the building, often appearing suddenly and disappearing just as quickly. He's creepy as fuck. According to the lore, the creeper is the ghost of a former patient who suffered from a rare and debilitating disease that left him unable to walk. In order to move around the sanatorium, the patient would crawl along the floor on his hands and knees, earning him the nickname the Creeper. Many visitors to Waverly Hills have reported seeing the Creeper crawling along the floors and up the walls of the building. Some have even reported feeling the sensation of someone crawling over their bodies during their visit. Oh, hell no! These are the spirits folks have consistently encountered. Random experiences occur all over Waverly Hills, including hearing disembodied voices and whispers that come out of nowhere. Some people have reported hearing cries and moans and other unsettling sounds. Many visitors have reported hearing footsteps and the sound of shuffling or dragging feet when no one is around. Folks have reported seeing shadowy figures moving around the hospital, particularly in the darker corners of the building. Several investigators have seen apparitions and ghostly figures throughout the hospital, on top of the ones I talked about earlier. Some folks have reported sudden drops in temperature or areas of the hospital that feel unnaturally cold, even in the summer. Paranormal investigators have frequently reported fluctuations in electromagnetic fields, which is often a sign of paranormal activity. And electronic voice phenomena, or EVP, recordings have captured a shitload of disembodied voices, whispers, and other unexplained sounds. Some EVP recordings are believed to be the voices of former patients or staff members who died at the hospital. These recordings are often analyzed and studied by paranormal investigators to try and better understand the nature of the phenomena and possible sources of the voices or sounds. As we wrap up our investigation of Waverly Hills Sanatorium, we feel a sense of closure and relief. The building's walls have seen much pain and suffering over the years, and we are grateful for the opportunity to bear witness to its history and not have to survive through it ourselves. As we begin to pack up, we turn to investigate. But before we can take a step, we're pushed violently from behind. We stumble forward, catching ourselves before we fall to the ground. Shaken, we turn to look behind us. But there's no one there. We exchange nervous glances, wondering if one of us accidentally bumped into the other, or if something else caused the push. As we continue to investigate the source of the noise, we hear it again, but this time it's accompanied by the sound of footsteps. We follow the noise down the hallway, but it leads us to a dead end. As we leave Waverly Hills, we can't help but feel a sense of unease. The push and the strange noises continue to haunt us, leaving us with more questions than answers. What happened in that hallway? Was it the work of a ghost or something more sinister, like a demon? The mystery of the strange events leave us feeling unsettled yet curious. We exit the building with a newfound respect for the power of the supernatural and a desire to uncover the truth behind the strange occurrences at Waverly Hills Sanatorium.